Let's make a 4-part mold. So the first thing I did was throw a solid object, which is super weird and brain-breaking, and then I put a handle on my weird solid object and added the design. So I'm adding this like weird hockey puck thing. My professor actually explained that later. And then you have to make the actual mold part, so I use slabs to be able to hold it in place and poured plaster. So after removing all of those mold parts, you have to add keys, which basically helps everything lock together, so you have to actually carve into the plaster and with no undercuts, all that good stuff. And then you have to add Murphy's oil because plaster will stick to itself, so I have to coat the whole thing in Murphy's oil.
They actually small. So this is her mug, but that's not part of her mug. This is just opening. So there will be a big opening where actually will pour slip in. So you need to have opening and then block that area with clay. Does it make sense?
Thanks, Wansu. Couldn't have said it better myself. So now that I've coated the whole thing in Murphy's oil, I'm basically going to do the same thing again and add like a nice smooth slab. The hope is that it's as straight and nice as possible so I don't have to do as much cleanup work later, and pour plaster. And I just want to say that I measured the perfect amount. Actually, it was almost a little bit too close to perfect because I probably should have added a little bit more, but it's fine. So now that I've made the rest of it, yeah, we just kind of skipped over the second part because it's the same as the first, add keys, do the things, blah, blah, blah. Now the keys for the top are a little bit different. You basically just take a quarter and make a nice little circle bit. And I'm not going to lie, I was terrified that this wasn't going to work. Like I thought the whole thing was just going to stick together. This is literally the first multi-part mold I've ever made. And because I'm a psycho, I did a 4-part mold, which is probably a little bit more than was necessary. Unfortunately, because this is my first mold that I've ever made, I did have a little bit of a mistake in the actual process. So that bottom spot is really, really thin and it just kind of fell apart. So there's a lot of like chips and cracks. So it is going to affect the overall look. But as far as like proof of concept goes, this is definitely pretty good. I promise that's actually not why all the parts fell off. That's just the rubber bands not being tight enough. But here's some nice, really satisfying shots of me cleaning. Wow, how domestic of me. So something that's worth noting is that you cannot put plaster in the kiln. If it goes in the kiln, it will go boom. So I'm just going to throw away the prototype. Yeah, I know, that's kind of painful. I probably could have scraped it down and tried to make it salvageable, but it's really just not worth it. So let's see if this actual mold even works. My biggest fear is that I got the ratio for the plaster wrong, so I worked on this other mold for a 1-part mold, and it is just very goopy. It doesn't set up properly, and that just has something to do with the plaster being deficient. So hopefully I got this done correctly, and yes, it's a little bit squishy and it got messed up, but that's my fault. I demolded it too early. This is a good proof of concept. I think it's going to work.